Hello everybody, welcome back to another video, and today I would love to talk about one of my favorite films of all time, The Heiress. Released in 1949 and starring the talents of Olivia de Havilland, Montgomery Clift, Ralph Richardson, and Miriam Hopkins. And of course directed by William Wyler. When shy, emotionally fragile Catherine Sloper, the daughter of a wealthy New York doctor, begins to receive calls from the handsome spendthrift Morris Townsend, she becomes possessed by the promise of romance. Are his smoldering professions of love sincere, as she believes they are? Or is Catherine's calculating father correct in judging Morris a venal fortune seeker? So that's the basic plot in a nutshell, and yes, I had to read off the back of the DVD because I cannot talk today, so bear with me for some reason. So, okay, I have to be honest. The first time seeing this film, I believe I saw it on Turner Classic Movies, and the first viewing, I didn't care for it. I believe I found the film to be quite boring, and I hated the ending, which I will get into a little later, so beware, there will be spoilers ahead. Last year, for some reason, I kind of was thinking about this film, because again, I had only seen it once, and that was it until last year. So I thought, okay, why don't I give this another shot? And I did. And I think it's because I'm a little older that it worked a little better with me, because I was a bit younger when I saw it. Some films I've seen, like in my late teens, early 20s, if I don't like it and then come back to it, I end up liking it more. There's been plenty of cases of this, like Rebecca and Gone with the Wind, believe it or not. And even Vertigo. There's been several films that, have been on my pile of I don't like them, and then I end up liking them later. This was one of them. Last year, after watching it for the second time, I became so obsessed I was watching it almost every day for a week, because I was really enraptured with the story and the performances of the actors. Olivia de Havilland is definitely my favorite out of the cast. She does an amazing job here. I've seen her in several films, most notably my favorites being Gone with the Wind and The Adventures of Robin Hood. But she steals the show in this film. She is absolutely incredible as Catherine Sloper, as the very shy but sweet character who later transforms due to circumstances in her life beyond her reach. Montgomery Clift also does a pretty good job. He's very, very cute. And I'm one of those people, and I'm sure I'm not alone on this, that even after his car accident, I still found him to be incredibly good looking. But I think the good looking part of him after his car accident was the vulnerable side of him. Even though he did play a lot of vulnerable characters while he was good looking, you could argue that he was just a pretty boy with great acting abilities. But after the car accident, he was no longer the quote-unquote good-looking guy. But I still found him to be incredibly handsome, and I can't help but, sympathize with him, and my heart goes out to him. It really does. But as far as his character is concerned, it does bring up the question of whether or not he does love Catherine. Again, I will get into this more in a spoiler portion of this video, so if you're interested in my thoughts on that, stick around. Now let's talk about Ralph Richardson as Dr. Sloper. Okay, so I recently just read the book, and in the beginning of the book, it clearly states that he has no affection for his daughter. He loved his wife very much, but when she died, leaving him with only Catherine, he resented her, I believe, mostly due to the fact that she reminded him so much of her mother. The movie kind of delves into that. There is a moment where during the party, he's talking to, I believe, his other sister. I believe he has two. One played by Miriam Hopkins, but this is not the sister he would be talking to. And she lets him know, listen, you're putting way too much pressure on your daughter. Like, you completely are blowing this out of proportion. And he's like, you have no idea who I lost and what I gained in her place. So there is absolutely no love there. There is resentment, and it's heartbreaking because Catherine is very sweet and she does want to please her father and want his love. But unfortunately, it isn't until later that she discovers the truth. And it's gut-wrenching. As someone who honestly has an amazing, okay, not amazing, obviously, but in my opinion, an amazing family and great parents who love me, I can't imagine what heartbreak this would be, wanting the love of a parent and not getting it. The music of this film is done by Aaron Copland. I have not really heard much of his music, but I will say the score to this movie is absolutely beautiful. It's lovely, it's breathtaking, and honestly, can we talk about why it's so rare? I believe the only thing you can get that has this music is a kind of divide, like it's one of them CDs that has the score to the Heiress, but it also has a score to a different film, which this particular film, I believe, had Myrna Loy and Robert Mitchum, I think. So why is this score so rare? Because I would love to get the music to this movie. As I stated, Olivia would win an Oscar for her performance as Catherine, and rightly so. But what I did not notice is this film actually won for multiple awards and was nominated for several others. Most notably, it won for, other than Best Actress, it won for Art and Direction, Costume Design, Best Score, and Best Actor for Ralph Richardson. Which, I'm going to be honest, I think that's kind of interesting considering his character is such a jerk. But I guess you can argue that he just played it so well. But I think he was also nominated for another film, I believe. So, but I'm not sure about that one. But hey, it's pretty good, I guess. I don't know if Monty was nominated for Best Supporting Actor, but I'm definitely glad that this movie had Oscar wins because it definitely deserved it. Now I want to get to the actual spoiler part of this film, and this could be a little long, and if you do not want to watch this part, then go ahead and skip to the timestamp below, and I will see you at the end of the video if you stick around. So the movie is based off a book, which is called Washington Square. And I finished it last week, and I really liked the book, but I will say I prefer the film. The biggest difference I want to talk about is the desertion of Morris Townsend and how the dad is portrayed in both mediums. In the book, Morris actually tells Catherine that he is leaving her. But he does promise he'll come back. But she pleads with him and is like, please do not go. Let's get married. And he's like, no, forget it. And he leaves her. By the end of the story, he does come back to her. He's changed. If I have the story correct, he becomes bald and a little heavy. And at this point, Catherine is completely done with him. That she's like, you know what, I don't care. We're done. And that's how the story ends. He walks out in a huff and she goes back to doing what she wants to do, which I believe was the embroidery, I think, if I have it right. In the film, it's way more heartbreaking. In the film, Catherine comes back with her father after their trip to Europe, which was a way for him to try to test out Morris's love, if you will, of Catherine, while also trying to get Catherine to forget him, which doesn't work. Well, when they come back, he basically tells her that she's no good and that the only thing worthy of her is her money. And that is why he doesn't think Morris loves her. But in that moment, it's Catherine who realizes that her own father doesn't even love her. It is brilliant acting by Olivia. It's so sad, and she handles it brilliantly. After he leaves her in the room, she happens to look out the window and sees Morris, and they embrace, and she comes to him with a proposal of marriage. I mean, granted, he tells her he wants to marry her, but she's like, I want you to take me now. Take me tonight if you love me. And he's like, okay, fine. But then he's like, well, let's write a letter to your father because we want him to forgive us. And it's at that moment she's like, no, forget it. Like, he's already told me what he thinks of me, and I don't want to deal with him anymore. And I don't blame her for that, honestly. And what gets me is that moment where she tells him this stuff. There's a shot of Morris just looking at her, and his face is just full of disappointment, if you will. And it's kind of at that moment you realize he never really loved her. He was only in it for the money. But as she gets ready, she waits for him because he claims he will come to her at midnight. And she's left there to wait. And what's even upsetting is the aunt, played by Miriam Hopkins, comes down and hears about the plan. And she's like, Morris is going to come and get me. We're going to leave. I will never see my father again. I will never come back to this house again. This is my goodbye. Well, unfortunately, Morris does not come at the time that they talked about. And even her aunt is like, why couldn't you be a little bit more clever? Did you really tell him that you wanted nothing to do with your inheritance? Catherine is already making $10,000 off of her mother's death. With her father's death, she'd be making 30. Well, he wanted that extra cash. And unfortunately, if she left without any goodbye or anything, without, just cutting off her father, then they were never going to see that money. Most likely, anyway. So Morris ends up deserting her. And again, it's like she sits there. She sits there and waits until I don't know if it's like 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. So by this time, she's been sitting in her living room waiting for 3, 4 hours, waiting for him. And she breaks down because she now realizes he is not coming for her. She then goes and gets confirmation the next day and talks to his sister, who confirms that he borrowed money and left for California. That's what makes this more tragic. He never said goodbye to her. He gave her false hope, didn't bother saying, okay, you know what, if you don't want this money, then I'm never seeing you again. It just becomes heartbreaking because she gets deserted. What's interesting, though, is her transformation from sweet and sad becomes anger and resentment, I think. And even bitter, I think, would be the better word. Dr. Sloper tries to talk to her the next day, and she barely looks at him. She speaks to him in a very stern tone, but does not give him much eye direction. The only eye direction we get in the beginning there of their conversation is through a mirror, and that's it. The only other time she gives him the eye direction is later when he kind of asks her if she does plan on marrying him and she does plan to leave, and he realizes how heartbroken she is, and he's like, oh, Catherine, I'm so proud of you if you have broken up your engagement. And this is where she gets the gumption to finally give it to him and stick up for herself.
I can tell you now what you have done. You have cheated me. You thought that any handsome, clever man would be as bored with me as you were. It was not love that made you protect me. It was contempt. I lived with you for 20 years before I found out you didn't love me. I don't know that Morris would have hurt me or starved me for affection more than you did. Since you couldn't love me, you should have let someone else try.
You have found a tongue at last, Catherine. It is only to say such terrible things to me.
Yes, this is a field where you will not compare me to my mother.
I don't want to disinherit my only child.
I know that you don't. You'd like to think of me sitting in dignity in this handsome house, rich, respected, and unloved. But I may take your money and chase after Morris and squander it on him.
I don't know what you'll do, Catherine.
That's right, Father. You'll never know. Will you?
Very powerful acting, in my opinion, on both sides. Both of them gave excellent performances in this moment, in my opinion. After the death of the doctor, Morris ends up coming back. This is definitely where there's another big difference between the film and the book. And that is Mr. Townsend comes back, still looking good. The only thing that changes is like he grows a mustache. But she is not wavering in her position. And she lets him know, this is what happened. It's like, he threatened to take away the inheritance because he was actually testing you. And he gives her some excuses, blah, 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 blah. And she makes out that she wants to go away with him again for a wedding and sends him off to pack and that he could come back for her. What he doesn't know is little Miss Catherine has a trick up her sleeve. She bolts the door. And he's left there at the other side, door locked, no Catherine, no money, and he's basically just done. And to me, this actually is more of a stronger ending than the book, because here she's shown that she is not going to let him in, and he shows just how desperate he is to try and get her back. There is the question whether or not he really truly loved Catherine. I think there was some affection there, but I don't think there was a whole lot. So the true love angle is if Morris truly loved Catherine, okay, and she said, my father does not like me, and I want to marry you, please take me away. If he truly loved her, he would have. I think he would have been like, you really know this. You really think that he does not love you. And she's like, look, I know this with my whole heart. I would not say it if it wasn't true. I know it to be true. Then he could have said, okay, my darling, you know what? We're going to get married and we're going to have a great life together. But unfortunately, that's not how it pans out, which leads me toward the other end of the spectrum, which is he never truly loved her. In my opinion, it's definitely one of the best movies that came out in the 40s. It's definitely become one of my all-time favorites, and I definitely recommend you see it. I don't know why you can't seem to rent it anywhere. It's not on Amazon Prime. It's not on Google or YouTube. So you might have to, I don't know. I really don't know. I had to buy it on DVD, but I also was able to watch it through one of my links through my Fire Stick. But as you can see, I have the DVD Criterion Collection, which is a 2-disc DVD. I love these DVDs so much. But I highly recommend you guys watch it. It's such a great story. And yeah, that's about it. So guys, thank you so much for joining me on this little adventure of The Heiress. Let me know in the comments below what you think of this movie, if you've seen it. Do you like it or did you not like it? And I will see you guys in my next video. I am so excited because I have so much things planned other than movie reviews. As I said, I make other content as well, and I cannot wait to dig into other, videos. So stay tuned. And I will see you guys next time. I hope you guys are having a great start to 2024 year, because I sure am. Anyway, I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye! Have a great and wonderful day.